The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
A very good morning to those of you in Asia, and good afternoon and evening if you're based elsewhere. I'm Kevin Teo, COO at AVPN, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Welcome and thank you for joining us for an introduction to impact measurement using B Analytics by Flory Wilson, International Director of B Analytics. It is about 9 o'clock at night where Flory is based, so Flory, thank you for joining us at this late hour to share about your work. We have more than 100 people registered for today's webinar, and it's good to see many representatives from AVPN member organizations joining us. Thank you for your continued engagement and support. For those of you who might be new to AVPN, our mission is to build a vibrant and high-impact venture philanthropy community across the Asia Pacific. And we do this by advocating the venture philanthropy approach, bringing AVPN members together in roundtable and sharing sessions, and also building capacity through webinars like these, as well as workshops and our Knowledge Center. There are currently 134 AVPN members in our community, and many of you would have also seen recent announcements around our new CEO, Naina Subawal, coming on board, as well as our new Executive Vice Chair, Andrew Murhead, joining us in January next year. So with a larger leadership team, we're excited about our upcoming plans. Flory will be providing a more detailed introduction of herself and B-Lab in a bit. In terms of overall flow of the webinar, Flory will be spending about 25 minutes on her presentation, and she will not be stopping for questions along the way. We'll have about 20 to 25 minutes for questions and answers, followed by a quick wrap-up of the webinar. For those of you connected to this webinar via your computers, you should see a small widget for the GoToWebinar software, and within this widget, there'll be a box where you can type in questions to the presenter. Feel free to submit questions as Flory covers her material. On my end, I will group these questions as they come in, and will raise them to Flory during the Q&A segment. This should hopefully address most of the common questions, but if you would like to contact Flory later, her contact information will be available on the last slide of the presentation. Okay, that's all I have in terms of housekeeping. Without further ado, let me turn the presentation over to Flory.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks to you and the entire AVPN team for helping to organize the webinar today and for the leadership role that your organization is playing in South and Southeast Asia in terms of supporting the development of a very vibrant venture philanthropy and impact investing space. We are really impressed by the work that all of you do. This morning I want to take a little bit of time to introduce you to some tools that the organization that I work for, B-Lab, is focused on. We are launching actually at the beginning of next month at the Global Impact Investing Network, the GIN event in London, a new platform called B Analytics, which is designed to be a flexible marketplace for collecting, benchmarking, and reporting impact data. Before I jump into the B Analytics platform, I wanted to just provide a little bit of context for the organization that I work for. I work for an organization called B-Lab. We are a nonprofit based in the United States with offices also in Latin America, in Nairobi, and in Hong Kong. My colleague Phoebe Leung is joining us by phone from Hong Kong as well. The mission of B-Lab is to support and serve entrepreneurs that are using the power of business, the private sector, to address and solve social and environmental problems. And so we execute on that mission with kind of three key principles. The one is to help entrepreneurs and their key stakeholders, like their employees, their community, as well as their investors, to measure what matters when you think about social and environmental impact. And I'll spend a fair bit of my time today talking about how B-Lab defines measuring what matters through our measurement tool, which is called the B Impact Assessment. The second thing that B-Lab is involved in is, sorry about this error message. The second thing that B-Lab is involved in is a certification, which is called B Corp Certification, which is really designed to help high-impact social entrepreneurs and sustainable businesses differentiate themselves from the market through a certification. And that certification also helps integrate into their business model principles that will help maintain their mission over time. So that is called the B Corp certification. The third principle that B-Lab is focused on is to help grow the impact investing field, the amount of capital flowing to those highest impact entrepreneurs, social and sustainable business entrepreneurs, and to bring more investors into the impact investing marketplace by providing the tools to define and measure impact in a comprehensive, credible, and transparent way. And we do that through B-Analytics and Gears. The challenge that B-Lab is focused on is, defining or tackling the question of how do you measure impact of an investment, impact on society and environment. So what do we mean by positive social and positive environmental impact? And then are others measuring that impact using a similar methodology? So are others tracking the same data points and kind of defining positive impact performance in a common framework? And then beyond defining how we measure impact, can we capture that data in a meaningful, comparable way while doing this in a streamlined platform or framework that ultimately is going to lift the data reporting burden on entrepreneurs and help inform and educate them on the way they are having positive impact, while also opening or broadening their horizon in terms of other things they could do to improve their impact performance. So with those challenges in mind, we are launching the B-Analytics platform. When we launch in about 2 weeks' time, we will have the largest global database of social and environmental impact data for privately held companies, as well as private equity and venture capital funds. So that'll include data on over 1,000 companies and 60 impact funds. To give a very brief overview of the types of functionality that subscribers to the B-Analytics platform would access, there is search functionality. So you can search for any mission-aligned company, fund, or investor using a variety of search criteria. You can also better understand market trends within the impact space by looking at the aggregate market trends data that we provide, again, on that universe of companies and funds in our database. Through B-Analytics, you can analyze your own impact portfolio by looking at customized portfolio dashboards. And the examples that you see here on the screen actually highlight some of the key performance indicators that we track in the core B impact assessment, pulling in many instances from the IRIS taxonomy. That's the Impact Reporting and Investment Standards, which is really a common framework or language of impact metrics and definitions that investors, entrepreneurs, foundations, and others in the impact space are already using to measure common metrics and use common definitions across their impact portfolio. You can then use B-Analytics to benchmark the performance of your own impact portfolio looking at areas within the portfolio that are performing, very well, above average, and also identifying areas where your portfolio might be underperforming and where you might want to focus technical assistance or other grant activities over time. And then lastly, you can use the B-Analytics platform to report externally to other LPs or stakeholders on your impact performance in aggregate. Looking at data kind of at the overall level, or as this example on the screen shows, looking at very specific data points, such as the % of non-managerial workers who come from chronically underemployed communities. B-Analytics allows users to collect custom impact data, and you can see an example of this on the screen, where we are working, for example, with UBS, who has recently launched a new impact fund of funds, and who are using our platform to collect a set of mission-oriented key performance indicators across all of the portfolio companies in the funds that they invest. And then on the other end of the spectrum, and what I'll talk about in a little bit more detail now, is using our B-Analytics platform to collect data through our GEARS, Global Impact Investing Rating System, and using the B impact assessment as the underlying methodology for that impact data. The last point I want to highlight is that many of the investors and funds that use the B-Analytics tools do this to help improve the impact performance of either their fund or of the portfolio investments in their fund. They do so through our GEARS company portal by leveraging a number of the free resources that are available and feedback tools that are available and feedback reports that are available to help an entrepreneur understand where they're doing well, where they might want to focus their efforts on improving their impact performance over time, and then utilizing the resources that we've built into the platform. I think I already mentioned that we've got now nearing about 1,200 companies on our platform, actually 1,200 companies that have been rated. We have 58 rated funds. And then in terms of who is using the analytics platform to aggregate their impact data, we have over 100 funds and investors that are using the platform, as well as over 40 business associations who are interested in tracking the impact performance of the businesses that they support. I'm going to leave this screen now and jump over to the web browser. In the email that Kevin and the AVPN team had circulated prior to the call, we included a link to register to test out the B impact assessment, which are, again, the underlying performance standards that are used to generate a GEARS rating. For those who haven't already registered through the link that we had distributed, I just want to kind of orient you to what that registration page looks like. I'm here on the GEARS website, www.giirs.org. And from here, any company or fund that's interested in understanding their impact can click on the assessment registration. We collect fairly basic information here, basic contact info, and then we ask around the country of operations, the sector that a company operates in, and then how large that company is based on the number of full-time or full-time equivalent workers. After filling in this data, when a user clicks submit, they will receive within about 30 seconds an email from B-Lab that will include a unique username and password to log into our company portal. In the company portal, the first thing you'll see when you log in is this welcome page. And this includes a number of quick tips to help orient a company or a fund to the process of submitting their data. Importantly, the performance standards that B-Lab has created, this B impact assessment, is a free tool. Any company can use it to self-measure their impact performance. B-Lab protects their data. We don't sell the individual data that's provided by a company or fund. And we encourage companies, again, to use it as a self-assessment, and to that end, it's okay to estimate responses to questions, but also to recognize that the assessment we've created is intentionally difficult, and that in most cases, an entrepreneur is going to answer no to about half of the questions in the assessment. The methodology that we use is that, the analogy I like is that it's kind of a buffet of positive impact performance. So we include every different kind of best practice when it comes to having a positive impact on different stakeholder groups, but that there's no expectation that an individual company would be doing, would be doing all of these things. It's common for someone to do a quarter or a third of the type of positive impact practices that we ask about. And then another aspect of this is that we recognize our assessment is not perfect. We iterate on our performance standards on a 2-year cycle. In fact, right now we are testing out version 4 of the B Impact Assessment, and we encourage users to provide us with feedback by clicking on the Leave Feedback button, which you can find in the assessment, to help us constantly improve our performance standards. Lastly, you can save your work and come back at any time. So with that as kind of an orientation to the platform, I'm going to go ahead and jump into one of my test accounts. I'm actually showing you the version 4. These are our performance standards that are being beta tested currently. And if you do have a chance to create a profile and log in, I would encourage you to use our version 4 beta and use this little red Leave Feedback button to give us your feedback on the questions that we've asked, whether they're appropriate for your company, whether there might be different answer options that you think are appropriate. One last orientation thing that I want to highlight is that we have the assessment professionally translated into the following languages, which you can access up here under the Change Language button. You'll see we have Chinese and Vietnamese. I'm not going to click into those languages because I won't then understand the assessment that you see in those languages. But if you're looking for another language, you can always also use Google Translate and access it in other languages. That's not a perfect translation, but we find that it does help companies provide answers to the assessment. The framework, the methodology that we use to measure impact focuses on kind of 2 different areas. The first is the operational impact of the company. And so with that, we look at their governance structure, how they hire and manage their workforce, how they manage their community impacts, and that includes both their supply chain as well as how they engage the local community, and then how they manage and mitigate their own environmental footprint. These, again, are all operational questions. And depending upon the company's geography, sector, and size, there's anywhere from about 40 IRIS metrics and questions for a smaller company up to about 130 questions for a large, fairly complex manufacturing business. You can see here the test account that I'm in is a service company with 1 to 9 employees that focuses on the emerging market. The second part of the B Impact Assessment focuses on the company's impact business model. I'm going to go ahead and click on this tab. This section of the assessment kind of flows from one question to the next. So we start off by asking, what's the positive impact or intent of the company? And you can select multiple impact business models. We find often companies will have a social or environmentally oriented product. They may focus on creating really high value jobs for chronically underemployed workers. And so just to use those as an example, I'm going to click no to these other examples. But then when you click Save and Proceed, there will be sections of the assessment that have been removed if those questions are not relevant for your business model. So you can see here on this next page as it loads that this section is blank because these questions aren't relevant for this company's business model. This was if I was a worker-owned business, which I said I was not. And then if I say, yes, my company does provide basic services to in-need populations, and I don't do the other things, then I'm going to click and proceed to the next page, where I'll then see a set of very detailed questions around the kind of product or service that I provide and who I'm providing it to. The framework that we use here is that we ask companies what the intent of their business model is. Then we ask how intensively their intervention is, who the beneficiaries are that they serve, and again, you can see here we use iris metrics. What % of their business focuses on providing that product or service measured by the % of revenues. And then we ask a number of questions that focus on the outcomes that they seek to achieve through that intervention. This is just one example of the kinds of variety, actually 20 different business models that we capture information on through the B-Impact assessment. A few other things I want to highlight is just that once an entrepreneur is done submitting their data, they would click tab number 2, and they'd be able to submit and get a preliminary sense of how they've performed. My sample company got a 165, which is an extremely high score. The assessment itself was out of 200 possible points. But anyone, again, can submit their data and get a sense of how they've performed and the percentage of points they earned in the various sections of the impact, of the B-Impact assessment. So the last thing I want to highlight in our company portal is the Improve Your Impact section. This is where a company can click on a report to better understand where they earned points and where they did not earn points, highlight things that they might want to do to strengthen their impact performance. And then they can click on any of these different resources down here to think about how to implement those practices. So if a company wanted to create an employee handbook, they could click on that link and here learn more about why is it important as your business scales to have a handbook for your employees. What should that employee handbook include? In particular, highlighting things that are the first steps if you are a smaller business. And then we include additional resources and links so that if someone wants to create a very comprehensive employee handbook, they would have templates and resources available. That's an overview of the impact assessment itself and the platform through which we collect the impact data from companies. We have a fund portal that looks very similar that our fund managers that are using our platform can use to also submit their impact data. And I'm going to now switch over to a different browser where I've already preloaded our fund portal. From the fund portal, you can access the B-Analytics platform. So now switching gears and thinking about the impact data from the perspective of someone who is asking the companies in their portfolio or the other funds in their portfolio to submit the data, how can they then access the data? In B-Analytics, you can see there are a few different kind of high-level dashboards. I've preloaded the search or the find companies and funds dashboard to give you a sense of how the search functionality works. So if you were interested in searching for companies that are in our platform by region, and let's use East Asia and the Pacific as an example, when I submit that as a search criteria, you can see it applies a filter, and then all of the companies that have obtained a Gears rating that are in our platform are loaded. And I'm going to go ahead and click on One Earth Designs. One Earth Designs is a really amazing company that's not only Gears rated, but has also met a really high standard for performance and has joined the B Corp community. One Earth Designs provides cook stoves for companies in underserved communities. And you can see here on this page some profile data as well as an aggregate of how they've performed on the B-Impact assessment. You can see a bit of their mission statement here. And then you can get a sense of how this company has performed relative to their peers. So down here on this page, I see One Earth Design here, One Earth Design's score here on the left-hand side. And you can see they earned a 164, and that they're an amazing performer in the community section. And then next to it, I see their benchmark group, so other developed market companies that are wholesalers or retailers, and other developed market companies that have between 1 and 9 employees. So you can see, I mean, their impact performance is almost double their peer group. If you wanted to learn more about One Earth Designs, you could actually also click here and download their full Gears rating report. I'm going to go back up to my B-Analytics home page, and I'm going to then search, I'm going to then click on the market trends data, just to give you a bit of a sense of the scope of the universe that we've worked with so far. You can see that there are 1,000 companies in our platform. They are in 53 different countries. They collectively employ 125,000 workers. And then you can see, and let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it better, that you can get a sense of what this aggregated community is, where they are based in emerging and frontier markets, how many are in East Asia, and what the different sectors are that they operate in: manufacturing, service, wholesale, retail, ag, and then some even more narrowly defined sectors. And let's click on education as a sector. If I wanted to know more about the education companies that are rated already or that are B Corps, I can click on that button. I can sort it into a list format. And there's the name of every single company. Again, I could click through and see more profile data about any of the companies that are in our platform. We have similar kind of marketplace data for the funds that are in our platform. I've pre-searched by the emerging market funds. There are 31 funds. They collectively control about $1.5 billion. And you can see here the regions they invest in, the stage of investment, early and growth stage companies primarily, the average investment size of these funds, what their target IRRs are, and what their vintage years are. Again, I've just scratched at the surface by showing you these few market trend pages. Up here, you can see there are additional pages that provide even more data. The last page I want to click on is the benchmark and report section for companies. So here is, if you use the platform to ask your portfolio companies to submit their data, this is where you would be able to see all of their data. I'm on our operations impact data section right now. And this is where we provide some of the key performance indicators and data the companies have provided. How long have you worked with your average suppliers? How involved is the local community in your business? How many jobs has your portfolio of companies created in the last year? And just to give an example, I have average 18% job growth across my portfolio. But if I wanted to see that data at the individual company level, I could click through and it would show me each company and their average job growth over the last year. I'm going to pause here. I've been talking for about 25 minutes, and I think I've given you just a little bit of a kind of a scratch the surface in terms of how the B-Analytics platform can be used to digest the impact data that we collect. And I hope that I've also given a good overview of the methodology that we use to collect that impact data. And so let me pause, and Kevin, if you have any questions that you've gotten, I'm happy to start answering them.
Yes, thanks for that, Flory. Thanks for the introduction on the various tools and services on the B-Analytics portal. The questions have been coming in hard and fast, so I've been scrambling to collate them and to sort of position them to you in a coherent manner. So let me start with this one. Does the platform only work with IRIS compliant companies?
That's a great question. So the answer is that our platform is one way that companies can become IRIS compliant. So if you haven't previously been tracking metrics through the IRIS taxonomy, by submitting your data through the B-Analytics platform, given the kinds of metrics that we collect and the definitions that we use, it's a way to start using that common taxonomy. So it's not a requirement by any means. It's a kind of a vehicle to begin to use the platform. One other kind of aspect of our platform that I just want to highlight is that we also have pre-populated our platform with the full IRIS taxonomy. So in the core B-Impact assessment, we track about 20 different IRIS metrics. If there were additional IRIS metrics that you wanted your portfolio companies to report on, you could pre-select those additional IRIS metrics, and when your companies log in, they'll see those IRIS metrics, and so then they'll also report on them through the B-Analytics platform.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And moving on to the next one, looks like the data is primarily self-reported. Is there third-party verification? And how do you authenticate the data that's been fed into the system?
Yeah, thank you. Another great question. And I was talking so quickly, I kind of forgot to talk about the process of data verification. So you're absolutely right. Obviously, the data is self-reported through our company portal. Once the company, and I'm going to switch back over here to the company portal just to show this, once the company has clicked, review and compare your impact report, and they hit the submit for review button, at that point, the data gets submitted into our platform. And we have a team of review associates now, about 8 people strong, who spend all of their time reviewing the data that's been submitted by companies and by funds. They have reviewed collectively data on over 8,000 different companies. So they're pretty well versed in being able to kind of skim through data that's submitted, look at the data, specific data points that are outliers. They also are familiar with, the questions that are more commonly misinterpreted in our assessment. Once the data gets submitted for review, our team reviews it, and then they reach out to each individual company and they set up a time to do a phone review, a survey assessment, where we spend about an hour on the phone with each company, talking through every question and metric, asking how did you calculate this, why did you provide this answer. And that level of survey review is sufficient for someone to obtain a GEARS rating. For investors who want their portfolio companies to go through an even more rigorous verification process, we have a partnership with Deloitte & Touche, where if an investor wanted the company to go through the process, the company would be asked to, you can see here under tab 4, upload documents. It's roughly anywhere from 8 to about a dozen documents that the company would be asked to upload that would verify the most heavily weighted or most material questions in the assessment that they've responded to in the affirmative. Once the documents are uploaded, they go to Deloitte for review and verification. And once Deloitte has reviewed them and given them the thumbs up, we can then offer for a company a reviewed GEARS rating. The third aspect of the data verification process is that on an annual basis, any company that's gone through that reviewed rating process is subject to a random on-site visit. And so 10% of reviewed GEARS rated companies are selected annually for an on-site visit. The standard BLAB verification is part of our core ratings process and product. Companies and investors can pay an additional fee to go through that Deloitte process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Let's see. This tool appears to be focused on assessing organizations. Do you have tools for assessing sectors or industries?
Yeah, good question. I'm going to, if I can, I'm going to click back into the assessment to again kind of highlight the area where we do dig into more sector specificity. So in the impact business model, this is where we ask, are you providing a product or service that targets a critical sector? And that could be education, healthcare, access to basic services, energy, water, housing. Then, we also ask about, if you're supporting preservation of a local culture, heritage, or if you're helping to support flow of capital to mission-driven businesses. But then the other variety of business models that we look at are if you're supporting the suppliers that you work with. We have a lot of companies that go through our assessment that are really mindful about their supply chain. They supply from fair trade certified companies, or they provide a lot of technical assistance to their suppliers or work with really small businesses. They might distribute their products through a micro-franchise business model, hoping to create a new class of kind of wealth owners and business owners on a small scale. So as we kind of look into those more specific business models, we do collect more granular data. And we have industry-specific metric sets that look at, education, energy. We're developing one that looks at ICT industries or healthcare, both products and services. All that said, if you go through our impact assessment and you say, you know what, this isn't getting the exact industry-specific data point that I want to track, you again can go in and you can either select iris metrics that track that industry-specific data that you're interested in, or you can create fully custom metrics that are focused on a specific industry or specific beneficiary type, and we can collect those custom metrics through our platform as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. We have a question here around how this tool can benefit or add value to intermediaries. And I guess these would be like social enterprise incubators or organizations that do capacity building.
Yes, so there are kind of a few different answers to that question, because I think there are kind of a variety of benefits. And we have examples of different business accelerators that we've worked with who are using these tools for those different reasons. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, the B Impact Assessment itself is a free tool, as are these improvement resources. And so we have a number of business incubators, business associations, frankly, business schools and people in the academic community who are really interested in helping to support and strengthen earlier stage entrepreneurs as they get ready to scale. And these Improve Your Impact tools are very much designed to help provide that value for the entrepreneur himself or herself. So many of the accelerators or partners that we work with are using these tools in what we call a do-it-yourself consulting manner, where the companies are encouraged to submit their data through the B Impact Assessment to get a preliminary score and sense of how they've done, and then think about things they can do to improve impact performance. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it ties more into the B Analytics platform itself, and so I'm going to switch my screen back over here to B Analytics, but is if you're an accelerator that's working with entrepreneurs who are looking to raise capital from outside investors and who are particularly interested in bringing on capital from mission-aligned investors who are, screening for focus, for impact focus, they can go through the process of obtaining a Gears rating, which will get them listed on the B Analytics platform. And so that company search functionality that I showed and the market trend data that I showed will be a way that as we launch the B Analytics platform and as more investors subscribe to it, we really envision this as becoming a very vibrant marketplace for investors to connect with companies or funds that are mission aligned. So there's absolutely a capital raising benefit to getting rated or to subscribing to the B Analytics platform. And then kind of the last way I would answer that question, just to make it very kind of tangible and concrete, is that we have partnerships with a few different business accelerators. There's a group here in the U.S. Called Investor Circle. There's a group that focuses on early stage entrepreneurs in Latin America called Agora Partnerships. And then there's a group called Village Capital who actually do kind of entrepreneur cohort groups around the globe and in different sectors. Each of those organizations has a partnership with B-Lab to use the platform to collect data from all of the entrepreneurs they work with, to kind of use that improvement or do-it-yourself consulting aspect of the tools and resources we provide. And then they also ask the companies that are raising capital or that they are investing in to obtain a Gears rating so that they can then, aggregate the impact of the aggregate companies that they work with to report back to their own stakeholders. So, you know, Agora has been invested in by a number of different a number of different institutions who want to make sure that even that their grant funding is still going towards serving their positive impact mission. So there are a variety of ways that we support business accelerators.
Okay, excellent. And for the companies that have reported so far, where are most of them based? And how would you compare companies only within your region of interest?
Good, very good question. And so I'm going to click here again on the market trends page so we can really see in detail the answer to that question. You can see here the geographic coverage of the companies that are in our platform today. And then, you know, many in Latin America, a smaller piece of the pie in South Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa. Middle East is quite small. East Asia is a smaller portion of our pie, and Europe, Central Asia, and North America, and then Western Europe. And then you can also see kind of the breadth of coverage down at the industry category level. Our standard benchmarks that we provide today focus on the kind of broad geographic benchmark group. So we benchmark relative to other emerging market companies or other frontier market companies. And then we also benchmark by sector. And then we also benchmark by company size, which is typically a good proxy for the maturity of the company, whether it's an early stage, growth stage, or a mature business. As this database grows, you know, recognizing we've been collecting data on companies now for about 18 months, we are beginning to get enough data at the country level to be able to benchmark more narrowly. So I think, you know, the next level of benchmarks that we will begin providing are regional benchmarks, South Asia, Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa. You can imagine, though, over time, I would say this might be in the next 1 to 2 years, that we would actually be able to benchmark at the individual country. We require at least 6 other data points to provide a benchmark group. So the more data we have, the narrower that we can provide benchmark data for users on the analytics platform.
Okay. And you have earlier mentioned that assessments could be time-consuming, and many companies typically manage completing about 30% of their profile on average. So how would you draw reliable conclusions given this?
So any company that gets a rating goes through the complete B impact assessment. So they have to answer every question in the assessment. And you can see here, I mean, my sample company has completed 100% of the assessment. And it's a good question. I mean, in order to fairly compare company performance across all companies, we need to have consistent and accurate data from one company to the next. We find that it takes a company anywhere from an hour and a half for a smaller, earlier stage company to submit to complete the B impact assessment the first time, up to 6 hours for a very large, complicated company where you would have an HR manager, a CFO, you know, an environmental or community impact manager, all of whom are going to have to go in and answer different questions. Once a company has submitted the data the first time to the impact assessment, when they go through and update their data in future years, it then becomes a much more pared down process where they have to resubmit all of the kind of the individual metrics, which would be updated year over year, but then they just have to skim the rest of the data to see if anything has changed. You know, much of the kind of the questions and data that we ask remains relatively consistent year over year. So the first time it takes a while, subsequent times when you're just doing the update, it's a much shorter process. And then to do the review with the B-Lab team, that's about an hour on the phone.
Okay. And there's a related question around this notion of updating your data. How do you track, I guess, snapshots of a company's progress over time?
Very good question. And so that is what we are building into the B-Analytics platform right now. So here in the portfolio benchmark section, you can see we have rating year. We've got data from 2011, 2012, 2013. We've been testing out how this will work for future data, which is right in 2015 there. We are building in pages here that will provide, for your own portfolio year-over-year data. And then we will also have on our market trends and market trends for funds section, similarly reports that show how in aggregate the data that we've been tracking is changing as the universe grows. So that year-over-year analysis we think is one of the most important and valuable aspects of this data platform. And in about a month's time, we'll have those first kind of standard year-over-year reports available on the analytics.
I see. And do you have year-on-year for a specific company as well?
Yes. So that's the other aspect of all of the company reports that will be added. There will be a year-over-year page that will show, in each of the different kind of sections, governance, community, workers, environment, as well as the impact business model section, how performance compared last year to the current year. And one of the things that we're really excited about as we are collecting this data on a longitudinal basis is that you'll also be able to see, wow, 4 years ago when this company first submitted their data, gosh, they were a really early stage health clinic and they only had 100 patients. But over the last 4 years, they've been able to scale to serve 4,000 patients. But you'll really be able to track the growth and scale of businesses from an impact perspective through the platform.
Okay. There's a question around privacy of data supplied by the companies. So when they respond or when they enter an assessment, what is their understanding of the level of privacy for the information they've provided? And how does this then translate into sort of where ratings are kind of shared to some extent? So how is that managed on both ends?
Yes, so any company that submits data on our platform for self-assessment purposes, their data does not get shared with anyone externally. We do use the data that they submit to do the anonymous and aggregated benchmarking. The individual data points that a company has submitted would never be shared. Once a company opts to obtain a year's rating or to become a certified B Corp, they sign a term sheet with B-Lab. And in that term sheet, they agree to have their year's rating report shared through the B-Analytics platform to any subscriber of B-Analytics. And what that rating report looks like, if we go back here and let's click on a company, let's click on pots and pans. As this page loads, the rating report includes a lot of this kind of high-level profile information. I picked a company whose data hasn't fully been, that's a recent company, so their data hasn't actually fully loaded onto the platform yet. So let's go back to One Earth Design. But then you can also click on their full ratings report, which doesn't show the individual data points that they've provided. It only shows the aggregated, how they performed in the benchmark data on the rating report itself. The third level of data transparency is over here in the benchmark reports. If a company submits their data and an investor is using the B-Analytics platform or someone who's doing due diligence on that company and asks the company to share their individual data points with them, the company, through their company portal, would validate that, yes, they want their individual data points, every answer to every question in the assessment, shared with that investor or prospective investor. The investor would then be able to see that data through the B-Analytics platform. But the entrepreneur, the company, totally controls anyone who actually sees the underlying individual data points through the platform.
Excellent, excellent. We have had a few questions around fees for using this. So could you share more information about the cost to engage in this tool as well as follow-on services that you've mentioned earlier?
Sure, happy to. So if an individual company came to B-Lab and wanted to get rated, they could obtain a year's rating for a cost of, and it depends to some degree, their annual revenues, but it begins at about $500 for a year's rating. And I would say that's probably the kind of the highest price point for a rating is for the individual company. And that's because it takes our team a fair amount of time to review that company's data. For fund managers, we do bundled pricing to provide the fund with a fund rating, as well as to provide ratings for all of that fund's portfolio companies. The cost is dependent upon that fund's assets under management. If a fund has less than $50 million in assets under management, we charge $3,500 per year. The other aspect of what is included in that $3,500 is access to all of the fund's data and B-Analytics data and the search and market trends information in B-Analytics. So part of that fund structure is access to B-Analytics. If you're a larger fund, it costs $5,500, or if you're a fund with more than $100 million in assets under management, the fee is $7,500 to collect the data each year and to view the data through B-Analytics. If someone is interested in just getting a basic subscription to B-Analytics, so just the search functionality and the market trends data, the cost of accessing the B-Analytics starts at about $500. And then if we're talking to a prospective user who wants to do something quite customized with the platform, the example I gave you earlier was UBS, where they're using the fund assessment to screen all of the funds that they invest in, and then they're asking every single company that the funds invest in to report on some custom data. You know, that is a more significant technology build for our team, and so we do that. We price that on kind of a per user basis for the custom technology.
Okay, thanks. And maybe final question here. What are your plans for Asia? It looks like you don't have significant penetration at this stage, so presumably it's a growth area. But if you could share some experiences based on your conversations here so far, and also share a bit about your upcoming plans.
Yeah, that's a great question and a really good one to end on, so thank you. It's a very accurate perception of the data that we currently have in our platform. We have, over the last 2 years, really focused from a business development and adoption perspective on the Latin American market and also on the sub-Saharan Africa market. You know, and what's really exciting about having spent the last 18 months focused on those two markets is that we really have now a quite rich set of data. And so, you know, funds and entrepreneurs in those regions have heard about their peers submitting data through the platform, have heard their peers talking about their ratings reports or becoming certified B Corps, and are eager to submit their data as well so that they can benchmark themselves relative to their peers. In Asia, and I was in Asia in June at the IIX Impact Forum, it seems that the impact space is maybe a little bit earlier stage than some of those other markets, which we find quite exciting, because what it seems like is that there's a tremendous opportunity to encourage folks as they're thinking about their impact measurement methodologies to adopt early on kind of a standard framework, to use the IRIS taxonomy, to use the B-Analytics platform to have the data collected and to then be able to benchmark. And that was, you know, a big reason that we wanted to orchestrate this call with the AVPN network as kind of an opportunity that if as a collective you are interested in submitting your data so that you can see how your portfolio is performing and how your entrepreneurs are doing, relative to other entrepreneurs in the region, that we would be very excited to work with all of you to collect that data and then begin to help you understand the information, sort through it, sift through the reports, build reports that are specific to your market, so that you know, in a few years' time, everyone in Southeast Asia will have a really clear sense of their impact performance relative to others and know what things they want to focus on and highlight. And then kind of the final point I would make is that we have recently hired Phoebe Leong, who's based in Hong Kong, and she is working on, well, she wears many hats. She's an extremely talented person, and we're just thrilled to have her on our team. She helps with developing the standards, so the B impact assessment and what's been included on version 4. Then she also, using her technology prowess, is actually helping to develop a lot of the kind of reports and thinking about how users best can access data through B analytics. And then lastly, she does bring a perspective and skill set that really has focused on the Southeast Asian market. So she'll be helping us work with our entrepreneurs and our investors in the region to answer questions, to help them verify their data. So we think it's very early days in terms of adoption of B analytics and gears ratings, but we see tremendous potential. I was just blown away by the conversations that I had at the Impact Forum in June, and I look forward to hopefully attending the AVPN conference next spring and hopefully meeting many of you in person.
Excellent. Well, Flory, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experience with the analytics on today's webinar. And to everyone on this call, thank you for your participation. I hope you have found the material useful. In about 3 weeks, the AVPN Roadshow will be kicking off across Mumbai, Singapore, Hong Kong, Seoul, and Tokyo. The roadshow topic will be around how organizations can effectively mobilize human capital to build capacity for charities and social enterprises. The roadshow events are invite-only, and there are only a few seats left. So if you feel this topic is something you're able to contribute well to, please send me an email. And finally, please take a minute to fill up the feedback form that will pop up as soon as this webinar closes. Thank you once again, and hope to see you in a future AVPN webinar or event. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.